See if you recognize who I'm describing. This person was born on November 4th of 1969. He was born in Harlem, New York City. He was raised by a very strong woman who worked multiple jobs in order to support him and his sister. She worked as a model, the mother did, as well as a teacher's assistant. And his father served our country. His father, Melvin Earl, was in the U.S. Air Force and was then killed in a car accident. Or so this person thought until he learned otherwise when he was in college. He went to college at a great school, Howard University. He was a business major and was raised in the church. They were very Catholic. He served as an altar boy. In fact, he went to Mount St. Michael Academy, an all-boys Catholic school, where he played football, even winning the division title in 1986. Now, when he went to Howard University, he went as a business major, and he did leave college his second year to pursue his career in music. He was popular in college. He was known for throwing big parties, which attracted up to thousands of participants. So, how could he possibly now be facing life in prison? This is the case of Sean Diddy Combs, currently in trial in a federal court for racketeering and sex trafficking. The sin, the motive? Wrath. Wrath is characterized by a strong feeling of hatred or resentment where anger is not managed or balanced by reason. The core of wrath is a strong desire to seek revenge or inflict harm on others. This is the why behind the alleged crime, the motive. But did he commit this crime? It's an unknown. People are divided on whether or not a jury will convict him of these federal charges. I'm Ashley Willcott. As a TV anchor, a former judge, and a trial attorney, I can tell you almost every single crime I've seen has intersected with one of the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth, the opposite of the 7 heavenly virtues, temptations that taken too far turn deadly. This week, we break down the ongoing federal racketeering trial against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. A little later, I am joined by Corey Pegues, retired NYPD deputy inspector, in our breakdown segment where he really helps me understand the streets and go into the how and the why of the mounting troubling accusations against P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Diddy Combs. Let's get into it. This is the Deadly 7. What is going to happen in this case? P. Diddy describes that he grew up in poverty. He has spoken about challenging childhood experiences, including living in conditions with roaches and a lack of basic necessities. He describes that as the fuel to his ambition to succeed. His father was a veteran, but what he learned when he went to college about his father was that he was an associate of a drug lord, Frank Lucas, and he was actually shot and killed while he was sitting in his car when Sean was just 2 years old. So add to that, his mother lied about what had happened to his father. She said it was a car accident. After high school, where he played football, he was a Catholic high school, very successful in high school. Actually, he was given a nickname, the name Puff, and they said that was because he would huff and puff when he was angry. So certainly the trauma that he went through in his childhood could account for his anger. But it doesn't excuse the alleged crimes he's committed and the assaults that he's committed against his girlfriend at the time, Cassie Ventura. We've all seen the video outside the elevator. Clearly, he assaults her. She testifies that he does that multiple times. How do you reconcile those behaviors by him with his worldwide rise to fame, his wild success in the music industry that is really attributed to this: a combination of entrepreneurial vision, keen talent spotting, innovative production techniques, and a masterful understanding of branding and marketing? Really, he's a genius, which is why he's a billionaire in the music industry. All of this began, if you just look quickly back at his journey, with an internship at Uptown Records. This started in 1990. And he became a very talented director and A&R executive and developed careers of future stars. For instance, Mary J. Blige. That's one. And this provided him with a lot of invaluable insights into the music industry. Now, he got fired from Uptown Records because of creative differences. And so he decided, I'm just going to start my own label. You might have heard of it, Bad Boy Records. So he starts his own label, and that really catapulted him into his immense success. And the cornerstone is described as his ability to identify and cultivate groundbreaking artists. One of the most famous significant signings that he did was the notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls. And not only that, the big debut album of Biggie Smalls, Ready to Die, was a massive commercial success that really was a pivotal point in Sean Diddy's career. But then add to that, his personality meant he wasn't happy just being behind the scenes. He wanted to perform. So he launched his own career in 1996 as Puff Daddy. And his debut single is Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, and that topped the Billboard Top 100. Then No Way Out was an album that did the same. So he understood the power of branding better than almost anyone. He became a music mogul. So, how did he go from that, with his charm and his ambition and his success, to being charged by the feds, not by a state, by the federal government, with racketeering, as well as sex trafficking and a host of other crimes? The charges include freak-offs that he did in different states, so across state lines. And the federal government alleges that these freak-offs were done as a criminal enterprise by him, that he's very smart with business. We know that. And so the feds are saying so smart that he used all the people around him, and he used force and threats and criminal enterprise to cause them to do his bidding, which resulted in sex trafficking. And all of this is being played out in a federal courtroom. The first witness was Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend for years, describing in painstaking detail what the freak-offs are, what they consist of, who was present, the sex workers that he would have her hire so they could come participate while he watched, the crates of lube, of baby oil that he would have present for these freak-offs rather. The number of people testifying now that they were aware this was happening, that they did provide the supplies and all the drugs and turned a blind eye when Cassie Ventura would have marks and bruises because she would be beaten by him. And they did it to keep their jobs. So all of this is the criminal enterprise being put forth by the federal government. Of course, Diddy says he didn't do any of this. He does admit, yes, I was wrong. I should not have assaulted Cassie Ventura. That I'm guilty of, but I'm not guilty of the criminal enterprise. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the jury's going to do. He does face up to life in prison, a minimum of 15 years, the maximum life in prison, if he's convicted of these charges. What will the jury do? Well, the feds are still putting on their case, and then he does not have to put on a defense, but he can if he chooses to, and his defense attorneys are very good. We'll have to see what this jury decides. Corey Pegues joining us now, retired NYPD deputy inspector, but also Once a Cop, a book by you. And I have been wanting to have you on. Thank you for us finally getting our schedules together, because I could think of no one better to talk about P. Diddy. So you're in New York. Let me ask you, first of all, what is the vibe there? What are your thoughts about the federal trial where he is facing racketeering charges, sex trafficking charges? What do you think?
Well, yeah, thanks. I'm happy we was able to get our schedules cleared up so we could have this conversation. Cameron Brown is over flooded. Anyways, Cameron Reed is over flooded, so we're over that. P. Diddy is what's happening now. So you have to understand, in New York City, P. Diddy, Puffy, Puff Daddy, whatever you wanna call him, he's an urban legend. He had a school in Harlem, so he's putting people through school. Obviously, his many companies have hired thousands and thousands of people, and he's a rags to riches story pretty much. So, he's very reverent in New York City. This is his home base. So the word is a lot of people are really stuck on Cassie been in this relationship with him for 11 years. People are really it's a hard pill to swallow. Sans her getting beat up and stuff. Nobody we know that he's a monster. He was abusing her physically, mentally, psychologically. But it was 11 years. And not only 11 years, people are of the impression like it wasn't like 11 years and s- social economic low end relationship. I mean, she had access to. She's Learjetting all over the world with him all the time. So it's mixed messages here. And me looking at the indictment, this indictment is all about him and her for the most part. I don't see this whole conglomerate that they're talking about. They would have been better off charging him with assault, which we know that hotel video, the statute of limitations is up. In LA, there was no weapons. The statute of limitations misdemeanor is 1 year. If he would have hit her with a lamp, it was only 3 years. And I think that video is from like 2012. So just the audience doesn't realize it because everybody's like, he's an abuser, but they don't understand that the statute of limitations for assault is up. So they had to come up with something else. I just think that it's probably a far reach, even though he he beat her, that's over. He had these freak offs with her. The question really remains is should he spend the rest of his life in jail? I look at this as it's a mirror of R. Kelly, sex, money, and drugs. But the difference is R. Kelly really was trafficking young girls around the country, and they were young girls, like 16, 15 years old. This you have to when you look at this judge, Puff Daddy was trafficking his girlfriend. I mean, he's a billionaire. He's going all over the world. He's taking his girlfriend with him. She consented to go on these trips, and she actually consented to freak offs. We know from the text messages. She said, "I loved the freak off last night." So, I mean, it's very cloudy. I don't know. I don't know which way this is gonna go. But if I was a betting man, I think one person on that jury is gonna have reasonable doubt.
And so you just summed it up perfectly. It's a cloudy issue, and there's so many different pieces of it I want to talk about. And part of it is what you mentioned about her consent. So some people say she consented. Clearly, she consented. That doesn't mean she should have been beaten up, hit, lots of bruises, lots of marks. It's on the video. So certainly crimes have been committed. But I guess my question is at what point do you say she wasn't really capable of consenting to the freak offs because she was a victim of domestic violence. And if you're a victim of domestic violence, you're going to do things out of fear. So you're not consenting in the way that a rational adult like you or me may say, yeah, I'm going to consent to that activity, but rather as a victim of domestic violence, fueled by fear. And we know that he threatened, we know that he used fear. Isn't that something that then maybe crosses the line to say, okay, she didn't consent to any of this? But again, I think that keeps it in the realm. I want you to respond to that, but keeping it in the realm of he committed crimes against her. And then we'll take it the next step in a moment to really see could that have amounted to the federal crimes of racketeering. But in and of itself, I think we could agree, yeah, there were crimes committed. She's a victim. She probably didn't consent to things.
Oh, yeah, I believe she probably consented in the beginning because it was her boyfriend. She wanted to make her happy. These are her words out of her mouth. She wanted
Mhm.
to make him happy and do these things. And then I think it just really spun out of control for whatever reason. This is his thing, and he really wanted it. And she just wanted to make him happy. But then he started getting abusive, throwing things at her, hitting her. But again, we got to always remember he's not being charged with any of that stuff. So none of that stuff. We have to just deal with the facts. He's being charged with sex trafficking, racketeering. It's the assaults. Everyone knows that he assaulted her. We saw one. That's only one video we saw. Can you imagine if there's a bunch of other videos in hotels of him beating her up. But as far as the assaults are concerned, he's not being charged with that. So, as you know, you're a judge. We have to stick to what he's being charged with. And can the prosecution, show beyond a reasonable doubt that he's guilty of those things? When I first heard about this freak offs with Puff Daddy, Puffy Diddy, I think I was thinking like everybody else, we was gonna hear about these lavish freak parties. But this is one-on-one parties with him, and now we know his previous girlfriend just was on the stand the last day and probably on the stand today talking about she got caught up in the freak offs too. He had her do the freak offs. But I really thought we was gonna see A-list celebrities because I'm in New York City. He had the white party every single year in the Hamptons. Tom Brady, like, Eddie Murray, everybody was there. We thought that this was gonna be something that took Hollywood down. But this is all about one. Now we know there's two people on the freak offs. So, and there was both his girlfriends.
They were both his girlfriends. And you're right. If you look at the indictment, it's pretty specific to your point, Corey, that it's I think as it's unfolded, I too have been like, wow, this isn't what I expected when you have a sex trafficking and a racketeering. And for those who are listening or watching who aren't familiar, the federal crime of racketeering is that he was running a criminal enterprise and he was using all the people that worked for him to run this criminal enterprise. And so the feds are arguing, listen, he is by threats, by duress, by physical intimidation, making all of his people do his bidding to engage in sex trafficking, to engage in racketeering. And there are people watching this that are saying it doesn't rise to that level, which I think I just heard you say potentially as well, is it's not rising to that level. So let's talk about some of the specifics in the indictment that I did want to talk with you. And one of them is, if you will give me just a moment, is in the indictment talking about the range of activities that he was engaged in. And they were saying sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice. We know that Kid Cudi testified about the arson to the vehicle, and you saw the pictures of his, I think it was a Porsche, you probably know better than I do, that
Mhm.
had been burned, all these different things, and that Combs is specifically recruiting, enticing, harboring, transporting, and providing, obtaining, maintaining individuals for commercial sex acts using force, threats, fraud, or coercion. And there are multiple victims. So there are three different victims. But I don't know that they've gotten it to that level yet. It's almost more individual crimes against individuals. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And even the Kid Cudi thing, the arson, I didn't see where they didn't pinpoint that Diddy committed the arson. He was there. He was seen leaving. The car's on fire. They don't have any seriological evidence. They don't have no fingerprints from P. Diddy at the location. He was there, but did he do the I mean, Judge, in the court of law, it's different. Like, we can't just like say, hey, while he was there, he had to do it. No, it don't work like that. Who saw him? What's the evidence that you have? Do you have any electronic evidence? Do you have anything to say that he did this or he called somebody? So that's also a gray area, but the sex trafficking with, like I said, the three individuals that he had a close relationship with, I don't know. Like I said, you mirror this to R. Kelly, it's a whole different animal, but it's this exact same case, sex, money, and drugs. But the R. Kelly, he had multiple young girls that he was bringing, and none of them were his girlfriends. As a matter of fact, I think the parents should have all went to jail also for those traffickers. You can't ask me. My daughter at 16 can't say, R. Kelly wants me to go on tour with him. I said, okay, well, get him on the phone. Where are we staying, Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, I said the same thing about R. Kelly. It's like, where are the parents in this case? They want fame and fortune, so they're gonna say, "Okay, I bless you, 16-year-old daughter, go with him." I absolutely agree with you. Hell no, you're not going with him, not unless I'm going too. A whole set of parameters. So I digress, but I do agree this is a very different case. And in this particular case, so tell me this, because most people when they hear it's the feds, they stand down because people know the feds don't play. They typically have airtight cases and they don't just halfway prosecute a case. So I think there's some surprised at what they haven't yet brought out in this particular case. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a former NYPD. What did you think
Mhm.
of the feds?
I I think they're top notch. They're the creme de la creme of, prosecutors. We know that. They have like a 98% conviction rate. I mean, look, they took down Teflon Don John Gotti, nobody couldn't get him. But once the feds really got on him, he went to jail for the rest of his life. So we're very surprised at what we're seeing. But, Judge, we know that this trial is a marathon. There could be the who surprise that's going to come up. We don't know. We just talking about basically what we have seen now. These cases go from A to Z. We don't know if they're at like J or K right now. They didn't get to the Hail Mary where everybody's gonna say, "Oh no, this is it." But when you look at the defense, the defense is really putting on a good case on these cross examinations. They're putting holes in all of these stories. And again, it's not a trial by judge, it's a trial by jury. So one person, and I think this case involves someone that has to have critical thinking because there's so many different pieces to this case. So I believe they have a mathematician and a scientist on this jury.
They
Those
do.
2 Alright, so those 2 people will be able to critically think. We know that because that's what they do every single day. But a construction worker, a nurse, a IBM person, they're not used to critically thinking all day long. So, now you have those 2 that's going to be able to say, "Alright, well, this is Cassie, this was the drugs, this is that," and, like when I took statistics in college, I thought I was the dumbest person in the world. I could never. They know how to do statistics all day long, and they could break the stuff down. Regular laymen that's on the jury, they're not used. This is a very complicated case, Judge, and if you're not able to critically think, y- reasonable doubt is going to come, Judge. I'm telling you, the reasonable doubt is going to get there.
And even if you think critically, what I always say is you've got the jury instructions, which are key in any case because it
Mhm.
tells the jury this is the law. You have to find the facts as you find the facts based on the evidence presented, and you have to apply it to the law. So they're going to walk out with a packet of the definitions of racketeering, of sex trafficking, and then they can look at what facts they decide to be true based on the evidence. And at this moment, I'm not convinced that the facts are going to find sex trafficking as well as racketeering. By the end of the case, perhaps it will. But to your point, there's the emotion piece. It is P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, call him what you will, Sean Combs. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody in the world knows who he is, not only for his genius as a musician, but also, to your point, having a school in Harlem. Everybody knows who this man is. And even if they've already voir dired this jury, obviously, when they were selected, to say, okay, we think we picked a jury that are going to be fair and impartial, listen to the evidence, apply the law to the facts, and then come out with a decision. But is that really possible when you have the biggest music mogul in the world? Everybody knows who this man is.
Well, you listen, one thing you and I know, even on juries, humanistic behavior plays a part, no matter what. I think it's 6 black men on this jury too. I think the breakdown is 6 black men. I think it's like 2 or 3 black women, and then the others, whatever it is. So here you got these black men. Maybe they grew up like him in a low social economic area. They see some of the stuff that's going on, against young black men in America. So, like, no one can convince me that juries just go by the read the instruction from the judge and make a decision. Your humanistic behavior seeps in, and that's in everything in life that you do. So I don't know. I'm just standing by looking at, and even you look at Cassie's, her best friend was on the stand yesterday and the day before yesterday. She made all these allegations, but when the defense crossed her, she had different things to say. Like, yes, I was bringing the drugs. I was a drug dealer. We was taking drugs all the time. Like, so her state of mind, like, do you really remember exactly what happened? Was you drugged? How do you remember? It's, I just hate to see these things happen. What I do wish what would have happened, unfortunately, Cassie was 8.5 months pregnant. And remember, she's the first witness. If they would have brought her on, if she wasn't pregnant and they brought her on right before they arrested, I think he would have had a major, major, major problem. Because now it's gonna be she has some bombs, but it's so early on.
Yeah.
Unless they
And
took
it's
very copious notes, they're not even gonna remember the star witness
well,
because
and I have to push back a little bit, Corey, because they do teach in trial skills primacy and recency. So it's the very first thing you hear and the very last thing you hear as a jury that you're going to remember. I would agree it would be very powerful to have had her last. But I
right.
think if you know she can't go last, is the first hitting it hardest out of the gate? Is it saying, hey, this is the best evidence? You're hearing it first. You got to convict.
Oh, no, it was listen, that would they hit a home run with bringing her on. I'm just hoping, I'm just thinking on devil's advocate, if they would've brought they in the home run either way, if she's first batter or last, but it would've just been much more in their mind if she was the last batter, but unfortunately, she was pregnant, and she just had a beautiful child a few weeks
That's
ago.
right. That's right. She did, and we know that one of the people that worked for him at the time even testified, "Yeah, I reached out to her to say congratulations on her baby. I'm still in touch with her," right?
Mhm.
It's yeah, and I think at the end of the day, the problem for people is that, again, what you pointed out, the distinction between the federal charges, is there enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt? We'll see what the jury does, versus assault and things that happen, but those statute of limitations have run out. How and why do you think he wasn't charged before all of this came out? Because once the statutes run, you can't do anything about it as a state. That's the reason for the law. And so why do you think he wasn't charged sooner on some of the assault charges, et cetera?
Because of what your opening statement. This is a multi-million-dollar mogul. Look, he paid $100,000 for the tape and thought the tape was gonna go away. If it wasn't for the other security officer who taped it with his cell phone, we wouldn't even be sitting in the trial right now. I mean, they woulda did the civil thing. She woulda got 30 million, 20, whatever she got, but it woulda never came here. The videotape was the linchpin, that was it. That really brought it and listen, if he assaulted Cassie, if he assaulted his last girlfriend, don't you think there's so many others that he probably assaulted also?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he was
I
getting
do.
away with it because everybody wants the lavish lifestyle, everyone wants the money, he got everybody signing NDAs, so it I mean, when you have the money, if he's regular Joe Blow, he's probably under the jail by now. But I think there's wiggle room and leeway with that lifestyle. You think about, it's like the Hollywood divorces, right? When you are married to somebody that's a mega rich, and then you get a divorce, even though you get like $70 million on a divorce, you're out the limelight. But you're used to this limelight, but no one cares about you. You're just some rich man or woman with $70 million, but you don't have the Enquirer, you don't have TMZ chasing you, paparazzi, you're not doing red carpets anymore. So, I think that played a bit of a part in their relationship also, like, for staying a little bit. That I don't know, but I'm just guessing that, some people don't wanna get rid of the lifestyle. I mean, listen, he had her under contract too, you gotta understand that. He had her to this music deal, so her other piece is like, I want my music career to flourish and go off, but he had an ironclad contract with her for whatever, 10 albums, 2 albums, whatever it was, so she couldn't leave.
Yeah. Yeah, she couldn't leave, and then she claims that he didn't produce any of the music that she sang and never did anything with it. So, in connecting this with motive, the 7 deadly sins, I see it as wrath. I think all day long he's got so much anger, Corey, that all of these actions, they come from a place of anger. They're accusations of rape. There was testimony that he raped. All right, so at the end of the day, we know rape is not about a sexual desire. It's about an underlying anger. And I think that his anger is so great that he behaves in a way that is uncontrollable.
Yeah, well, so from the street's perspective, I look at him as someone who went to, Catholic school. He wasn't in gangs. He wasn't in the street, but we do know in an urban area, being from the streets and being gangster, that's what's in. But so he started doing that once he got the money, but he was just regular Joe Blow, going to Sunday school and all of that. He wasn't this gangster, but when you get all of this money, I mean, come on, they had him on the Forbes list as a billionaire, one of the rappers, Dr. Dre, him and whoever, Jay-Z, just those 3 billionaires. So this guy had money to burn, and everyone is a yes man for him. Every single person, because they don't want to get rid of their job. Just like again, I keep forg- don't want to keep going back, but R. Kelly. How does all of this happen? No one wants to lose their job. No, everyone's condoning the behavior because they have their family to feed. So, when you get this power, you get this money, unless you wanna just really be a stand-up person and say, "Look, I'm outta here. I don't wanna deal with this no more," or "I'm going and I'm telling," you're just gonna be stuck there.
And one of the personal assistants has testified in this trial that she didn't leave, even though she saw things, even though things happened to her. She didn't leave because she had a special needs child at home. She had to feed. Right? It was about the job security. She didn't want to lose this job. She was getting paid well. So I think that highlights what you just mentioned. And I can't wait to see what happens by this jury. We know federal court cameras aren't allowed. We have lots of reporters have been covering it, reading all the transcripts as soon as they come out. But it's a little bit different because we don't have cameras
We have to
inside that
change this
courtroom.
law, Judge. We have to change this law. There's
I
no
agree with
way.
you because the public has a right. The public has a right
Yes.
to see the trial. In a trial like this, the public cannot get inside a courtroom to watch the trial, and media gets to get in and report it, but it's not the same. I as a judge, believed that cameras should be allowed, and I still believe that in every courtroom. I think that that's the reality of where we are as a society, and the right to be present for a trial means cameras need to be there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Second the motion.
Yeah. Okay, now speaking of cameras, we have to talk about something you casually threw out, which I had not fully realized. I knew about your book, Once a Cop, but now you're a Hulu star. Tell us about that.
Yes, over my right shoulder here, I have my feature documentary on Hulu called A Cops and Robbers Story, and it's based off the best-selling Simon and Schuster book, Once a Cop. So after I signed my book deal and my book did very well, I had a documentary deal. Hollywood was calling and they wanted to do my story, and I got that. So I also signed a movie deal with Legendary Films to do a series, a television series. That didn't work out. So now I'm shopping a television series also about my life.
So give us a little blurb about your life of what you would share in like 10 seconds or less elevator speech so that we all watch and read your book.
Yes, well, as a young misguided kid growing up in a low socioeconomic area in Queens, New York, a family of six, five sisters and myself. At the age of 13, I gravitated to the streets, started selling drugs, carrying guns, and doing a bunch of stuff I'm not really proud of now. But at the age of 17, I changed my life. Actually, I had 2 kids at 17 years old. In high school, I had my daughter and my son in the 12th grade, 6 months apart. And I went to the United States Army, did 3 years, 8 months, came out, went to the NYPD, quickly rose to the top along the way, got my bachelor's, my master's, did some very good things. I retired after 21 years, and then I wrote about my story.
A success story, and I adore everything not only that you've done, but what you stand for because you understand the streets, you're from the streets, and you're willing to talk about that. You come on TV to share not only your story, but your perspective, and I think it's a perspective that, so many of us can't have, don't have, and you offer it freely. So for that, I thank you. Talking all things, Diddy, we're gonna see what this jury does. I agree with you, I'm not there yet. I don't yet think that they're gonna get all their charges beyond a reasonable doubt, but we'll have to wait and see what the jury does. Thank you so much for making time for this today.
Thank you for having me, Judge.
Always.